And that's why I think Bardcaster Riptide is the best version of Riptide. Thank you for watching. You fucking idiots. Guys, don't listen to him. He's not a nice guy. He's also wrong. This is the way to play Riptide. Welcome everyone to this Redspine Manta Riptide deck tech. High Seas came out, Death Dealer left, we got Redspine Manta. Despite the ceiling on this bow being lower than that of Death Dealer's, there is a lot of cool things you can do with this bow, to the point where I wouldn't say it's objectively worse than Death Dealer Riptide. I think it's just a different deck. And I'm going to show you some things in here that I think work perfectly with Redspine Manta, what it was designed to be played with. Some spicy things in here. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, things off with the equipment. I'm playing two bows, Redspine Manta, as I've said like 3 times now, and Dreadbore for the helmet, New Horizon for the chest piece, tunic and trench, and then arms, long draw half glove, legs, Snapdragon Scalers, and the one quiver driftwood. I'll get into Redspine Manta at the end. I'll talk about the rest first. Dreadbore, this comes in against the Earth Heroes, and it also comes in against Ira. Now, this deck is built to play with Manta. It can play Dreadbore pretty well. There's a few cards in here that are a bit clunky because they are designed with Manta, but for the most part, it works pretty well. New Horizon has to be played with Manta. You're no longer drawing cards from Death Dealer. You don't have anything really special about the deck that, say, AIM and Death Dealer had. So you need to leverage 6-card hands as much as possible, because that's the unfair thing that your deck does. So New Horizons, Redspine Manta, they pair very well together. Now Tunic. I think Tunic is the perfect chess piece for a Redspine Manta list. In Death Dealer, it would draw you a card, which is good. But also in Death Dealer, if you're trenching something away and then you activated Death Dealer, you're replacing that card for another card, so it wasn't that bad. But if you're now trenching something away and you're just getting 1 resource for it, that's a terrible rate. If you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I don't think it's that bad, then you really need to evaluate what you think about in Flesh of Blood. Pitching reds is not a good rate. And so for Redspine Manta, it's free to load and we don't get anything for loading. So Tunic is in here to do one thing and one thing only, and it does it exceptionally well. And I'll get onto those cards later. Trench, this is the AB piece. I'm only on AB1 because this is a very red line list, and I can't really afford to pay for Arcane. It's more in here for Rune Blades, and it is actually, the effect is good into Verdance because oftentimes she'll just send Arcane at you, so you won't be able to cycle through quickly. Long draw, this is just a no-brainer for me. It does so many things for the deck. Firstly, it blocks 1, which is what Sharpshooters does as well. However, this thing increases the floor of your deck so much. It lets you play around Warmongers, and it also lets you make use of tempo regardless of how few buffs you draw. The amount of times I played without long draw and I have tempo and I draw up a hand into an aggro deck and it's 4 arrows, it just sucks. And so long draw really, really helps raise that floor. And you'll notice that because I'm on Tunic, I don't have a way to clear my arsenal like you would with Trench. So long draw sort of does that. I like to save it for when I really need to use it. This is like the last resort arsenal clear. This is the main arsenal clear. Driftwood Quiver is your release valve for if things go wrong. It shouldn't go wrong more than once a game. In fact, it shouldn't even really go wrong more than at all once a game. But, you know, sometimes it does. And to be honest, the other 2 quivers that you can play, they don't really make sense in this deck. Rustling Leaves is too expensive, and Quiver Abyssal Depths does nothing. In Bardcaster Riptide, it makes sense to play Abyssal Depths because you're getting back Dominate arrows, which have evasion. If you're just getting back 3 arrows with Abyssal Depths that can easily be blocked out, then you're not really stopping Fatigue. If Fatigue is coming down to those 3 arrows, you could have just played better elsewhere. And I'm not bothering playing the Enchanted Quiver because I'm just kind of sacking the Kano matchup. Verdance, I wouldn't play it. Well, it's just not enough equity for Verdance. You can run it if you want. And also Acilio, I just have other plans for Acilio. And then Snapdragon Scalers, it's a pseudo arsenal clear, but it also gives you access to some phenomenally powerful turns with Endless Arrow and Rain Razors. So I would say you have to play it. Now to talk about the Redspine Manta itself. Get out of here. this bow is cool, okay? It's not a strict downgrade from what we used to have. The fact that you can activate it whilst you have a card face up in your arsenal is actually very useful. And the way I describe Manta is it feels like you're running a really well-oiled machine. It's not as powerful as, say, Death Dealer or Bard Castaway, for example. But what you get is some really cool synergies between the cards and some really cool play patterns that you can make. It just feels like really confined, but also really efficient at the same time. So, yeah, really cool bow. And there are some cards in the main deck that help take advantage of it, and also some cards that help mitigate some of its weaknesses as well. I'm now going to show you the arrows that I play. 3 Falcon Wing, 3 Dry Powder Shot, 3 Drill Shot, 3 Endless Arrow, 3 Swift Shot, 3 Searing Shot, 3 Stone Rain, 3 Bolt and Shot, 3 more Bolt and Shot, 3 Remorseless, and 3 Heat Seeker. And just to chuck in the rest of the attacks while we're at it, Rabble, and I'll just include Codex of Frailty in here as an honorary attack. Now you'll notice here, there's a lot of zero cost arrows. It's a very red line deck, which means Rabble becomes very, very good. Now, Falcon Wing is incredibly good into Gravy. It's probably the best arrow to arsenal in the deck when you want to have big turns. Very good with Rain Razors. Dry Powder Shot, this is a new arrow. It synergizes very, very well with Manta. Manta basically turns your arrows into zero cost attacks that aren't arrows, because even though you are functionally loading them into the arsenal, there's no cost to it, so it's essentially just like sending an attack for free. Dry Powder Shot gets +2 when you do that, which is really, really strong. Drill Shot, just a really good 0-4 with a really, really good on-hit. Endless Arrow, probably the best arrow in the deck. Playing 2 copies of two different colours of Bolt and Shot, because with Rain Razors it's amazing and it lets you set up those wide turns that can overwhelm an opponent, and also provides insanely good value. Swift Shot, another new arrow. When it's put face up to the arsenal, it gets go again. With Manta, you're basically turning into Aurora, just going 0-4 go again, then like buff into another arrow or something. Really powerful card. Searing Shot, this is just really good 0-4. If it hits, obviously 0-5. It's your best 1-card Codex target if your opponent has lost their armor. And for the last 0-4 Stone Rain, I think this is actually one of the most important arrows in the deck. So Redspine Manta, it doesn't give you card advantage, it doesn't give you evasion like Bard Castaway does, which means you're a little bit susceptible to fatigue. If you don't see your Rain Razors well, or you get disrupted, I think if someone turns up and tries to fatigue you, it's actually very easy to do. Stone Rain stops that from happening. There's 2 cards in this deck that give aim counters, and so playing a Stone Rain and giving it Dominate is a very disruptive, very good rate, and it's also a really good way to stop being fatigued. So incredibly powerful. And when we get onto the buffs later, I'll explain some of the cool lines that Redspine Manta lets you do with Stone Rain. Now for the 1-cost arrows, Remorseless and Heat Seeker. Remorseless is sideboard just for aggro, and Heat Seeker is just a phenomenal card. Now, I mentioned Tunic earlier. Tunic does one of 2 things, like I said. One of those things is paying for Heat Seeker, because just going Redspine Manta, firing Heat Seeker with Tunic is a 1-card 8 if it hits. That's an insane rate. You pair that with Premeditate, you go Premeditate, load this, that's a 2-card 8 for damage, but if it hits, you get 2 whole cards that you can put, one goes face up, one goes face down. That is an obscene rate. And because we don't ever really need that extra resource for anything else, because we're quite lean on our cost curve, because we don't need to pay for anything, then saving just that Tunic for the Heat Seeker play it's a blowout. It's one of the broken things the deck does, and you need to be able to do broken things. So yes, incredibly powerful card, and Tunic enables it. And in the aggro matchups, Tunic pays for Remorseless as well. Now for some pumping. I'm playing 3 copies of Point the Tip, 3 copies of Premeditate, 3 copies of Seek and Destroy, 3 copies of Lace of Bloodrot, 3 Lace of Inertia, 3 Rain Razors, and 3 Line It Up. Now, there's some interesting choices in here, and I think they actually work quite well. I'll just go over the obvious ones very quickly. These 3 buffs are probably the best generic buffs you can get. The rate on them is fantastic. The disruption on this paired with Stone Rain, very, very strong, and Dreadbore as well. Lace Inertia is one that I'm iffy on. You could drop this for something else. I run it because I like playing it into the Dreadbore matchups because it stops them putting D-Reacts into their arsenals often. It gives me a chance into Cilio and Kano, because if I'm hitting them with Seek and Destroy and Lace of Inertia, they might struggle to hit their combo very effectively. It's pretty much your only chance into those heroes. And also, with Death Dealer, we had card advantage. We no longer have card advantage, and if we can't have it, no one can. So let's take it away from our opponents by getting rid of their arsenal. And now I'm going to talk about Point the Tip. I think this card in Manta is insanely strong. So it gives an aim counter, and it gives +3 to that arrow. The arrow has to be face up, which means historically it has not paired well with Riptide's reload ability because he reloads face down. We now have Manta, which is basically Riptide's hero ability. It's free, so you just load an arrow face up, then you fire Point the Tip. So a really efficient play. Like, Riptide's very good with his 2-card 7s. Traditionally you'd go like a pump into like a C-ring shot and you wouldn't need to use your bow. You're now still doing that, but your bow kind of facilitates playing this card as well. So what this does is it gives aim counters, and that means your drill shot now has piercing, your falcon wing has +1, and your stone rain has dominate, and that is huge. That is a really, really good effect to have. If you just draw this in stone rain, you activate Manta, play this. That's a 2-card 7 with evasion and disruption. You pair it with Seek and Destroy, then it's 3-card 10, just numbers wise, and then we're also getting rid of a card of our opponents permanently. So that's at least a 3-card 13 with evasion, which this deck really, really needs. So incredibly powerful. It sucks to ponder. Pondering this and the dry powder shot is not very good, but it's very unlikely to happen. And again, there is Driftwood Quiver and Long Draw for when that does happen. So if it does, no biggie. It's basically the same as trenching it away. Now for the yellow buffs, Line It Up fills a similar role to Point the Tip. It's a bit more flexible than Point the Tip though. And yeah, it just gives aim counters, gives +3, but it blocks 3 and is yellow. The yellow part, not really relevant unless you have 2 of them and a 1-cost arrow. But this is the other thing that Tunic pays for. So if you've got your Stone Rain and you've got your Line It Up and your Tunic counter, then that's again 2-card 7. It's absolutely fine with evasion. So yeah, really cool card. Giving aim counters in this deck is a very small aim counter package, but I think it's very powerful. So yeah, I'd recommend you give it a try. And lastly, Rain Razors. I'm playing 3 Rain Razors because Rain Razors is broken. Into the matchups where you want to play it, you want to see 3 of it, because this is the card that lets you be like, oh yeah, I just did 24 damage. GG. I will say that Ranger is probably not in the best spot at the minute, and so you need to put things in your deck that are broken, that are unfair. And at the cost of maybe a little bit of consistency, I think it's worth it. The ceiling on this is insane, and I think if you want to win games against your harder matchups, cards like Rain Razors are what gets you there. And now for the traps, and dare I say block cards. I'm playing 3 Return Fire, 3 Sink Below, 3 Lace with Inertia, 3 Tarpit Trap, and then 1 of the legendaries each. So, Return Fire, a new card that came out in High Seas. This deck utilizes it perfectly. It's a 1-card 7 if you get the effect off, but the floor in it is a block card that blocks for 4. It lacks utility, but it is still powerful. And as I said with the Rain Razors, I think you need to be playing cards that are unfair. So even though this is a little bit inconsistent, it still lets your deck do something unfair every once in a while. Well, I'd probably say actually it's pretty consistently lets you do something unfair. So I think you have to play it. Now, you might be thinking, but you're running Tunic, how can you play Return Fire? Because how am I supposed to trench away my arsenal to get the +3? Well, let me tell you, my friend. In Flesh and Blood, we value the average card at slightly more than 3. So if you're trenching away that arsenal, then you're actually losing out on value just to try and get this off, okay? So if I actually use that card in my arsenal and I block with Return Fire, I'm actually getting the same, if not more value, because there's lots of good cards in this deck. And if you really want to get rid of that arsenal, you have Driftwood Quiver. Again, that's the exact same value as you get from the trench. So the one time you need to do it in a game, you have the Driftwood Quiver to get you out of it if you really want to. It does suck to ponder, I will admit, but again, if you don't ponder it and you draw it and you block with it, get the effect, then it's kind of like you did have a ponder because you've now got +3 from your arsenal essentially. So it actually does work quite well with Tunic, and I would recommend that you try it. Sink Below, you can play this for shelter, but I like just being able to sink and draw in something consistent. Tarpit Trap is broken, you have to play 3 of this, absolutely must do. These 3, doesn't really matter that they're blue in this deck, but they all do very powerful things. And then lastly, I'll talk about Inertia Trap. I do miss, this is kind of the slot from other lists that had Boulder Trap in it. but because I don't really need to pay for anything in this deck, the traps being yellow doesn't really matter. And so I like having Inertia Trap because, again, I hate people having card advantage that I can't have, so I take it away from them. This is the best Inertia token that you can ever give someone because you give it to them by surprise. If you send Lace with Inertia with an arrow, they plan their turn accordingly. If they, say, send an attack and want to Arsenal D-React and you Lace with, you Inertia Trap them, then that's a lot of value. Works extremely well with Dreadbore too, and yeah, it's just a very, very relevant trap at the minute. With Mastery Pack Guardian coming out, I just want to add that if Syndra disappears and Guardian becomes a bit more prevalent, I would probably swap out Sink Below for Boulder Trap just because there's going to be a lot of armor in the format and blocking 4 won't be as important. So that's just one thing to consider going forward. And there you have it. That is Redspine Manta Riptide in its entirety from myself. I think there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this deck. There's a lot of deck building still to be explored. It's just a really fun and satisfying deck to play. So if you're looking for a version of Riptide that has game into basically all of the meta, then this is probably the deck for you. Give it a try, let me know what works, let me know what doesn't work. I love talking about the deck, so any questions, comments, feel free to engage. It's great fun. And with that, I wish you a good day.